Hey, what's up? I'm coming at you with another video here on guitar playing, and we're taking a look at chord progressions guitar. So it's actually really easy to write chord progressions, in my opinion. If you use power chords, it's a little bit harder to write chord progressions that are more complicated, but if you know the power chords, or at least open chords, uh, and even better, well, bar chords, or even better would be inversions. But if you know the basic power chords, you should be able to play power chord progressions. So if you don't know anything about power chords, you don't go back to the previous lesson, watch the power chords guitar video. But this lesson I'm going to show you how to make chord progressions guitar. So we're going to start with the chord progressions chart right here. And this is going to be a chart of both the major and the minor, and you can actually see how they basically overlap. So when we're writing chord progressions in the key of A minor, it's actually the same thing as writing chord progressions in the key of C major. It's just that they overlap, and we know that music is basically this continuous cycle of music. In fact, if we were to start chords on any one of these different charts, you would actually see that they all line up. Let me pull that up for you. Yeah, so this is actually what I mean right here. We can see that all the chords, like, they overlap. So if you start on D here and you play these chords like this, then it's going to overlap here. Look at that. If we play an E, we start from the E, we got this. It's the same thing. If we start on F, they overlap. So the chords overlap. If you start on one of these letters and you play these little patterns, what I like to call these patterns are the letter patterns. And they start on a certain letter and they follow the natural notes. Notice there's no sharps and no flats. So the thing about these chords here is the basic theory behind it is these are the chords that are created when you don't use any sharps or any flats. And we're going to go more into the theory of how chords are made over here in these minor chords guitar, major chords guitar videos. But for right now, just trust me that these chords work, and whether you're going to play these with power chords or with open chords or with bar chords or with inversions, then these chords will work together. So we're just going to go off of that, and we're going to start making chords in these different keys. So we're going to take a look at major chords first. Now you could be playing in any one of these keys, right? Lydian, Dorian, Phrygian, whatever. You could play in any one of these keys, but for now we're going to take a look at the two main ones, which are major and minor. We're going to start with the major here. So let's start with taking a look at the letter pattern of C, basically. And if we go over to the letter C, that's going to be on the 8th fret right here on the 6th string. We're going to play that little pattern. Now I'm not going to play the chords, I'm just going to play the notes like this. Alright, so that's just just simple notes right there. And that's all good. Oh yeah, there's two more, sorry. The last two, as you saw right there. So those are going to be the notes that we're going to follow along. Now I want you to do this not with just the fingers that I did there, but with your index finger only. So let's do it with only the index. So we went up the scale just like that. One more time. Okay, now we're going to extend this to a power chord and do the same thing. Okay, so you see why that makes sense? You see why those are the chords that fit the C major scale. You can hear it. You could hear it in the chords. So those are the chords that fit in there. You just use power chords. You could use this with like open chords. So you play a C. No, I have a distortion on, so it's not going to sound so good. But I'll change this to not distortion in 1 second. Okay, so you could actually play this with open chords. So we're going to start this with a C, the D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, and a C. So you get the chords there. Now of course you're going to have to know more about the open chords in order to play that there. And it's all stuck here in one position. So you don't get to see what the numbers are. So you don't really understand what's going on. You're just playing chords kind of at random unless you really get it. I mean, hey, so that's that. Now one last thing, we could actually play these with bar chords. So that's going to sort of go back to this position here. But now we're going to use full bars. here. All right, now we don't really have to use the full bar, and we don't really have to use the open chord. We can just use the power chord, and that's what I'm going to be using for examples from now on. I like playing with power chords and then later adding on some other basically random notes from the, you know, from like surrounding. Oops. Okay, so I'm playing a power chord and throwing in some other stuff. So I like doing the power chords plus notes instead of like trying to play like the bar chords over here. I just feel like it's so like cliche and so boring. I'd rather do some other stuff. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what we can actually do to play some of these things. I guess we'll take a look at the minor pattern next, and then I'll do some chord progressions. No, let me just do some major chord progressions right now, real quick here. So what is a chord progression? We're going to play the root. Here's some tips. Yeah, when you play chord progressions, you're generally going to do like 4 chords, right? But let me give you some tips on how to write better chord progressions. So essentially, you choose any one of these chords at random. Generally, you'd start on the 1. So, you know, obviously you start on 1, 2, 3, 4. You do whatever chords you want to, but you start on 1. So in this case, it'd be C. You'd start on C. I'm going to go back to some power chords over here. So we start on the C here, and then we can play any order that we want to play a chord progression. We're gonna make sure that we do tip number 1. I'm gonna play the root chord many times. Now the 1 or the 8 is the root, so the 1 is here. Now if you do that, you can sort of sandwich your ear in between the 1 and the 8 to really establish this key of C. This is just some basic chords there. You can hear if I start on the 1s and play the 8s and go in between those two, it sounds really good. Like it sounds like it's like fitting in this C, like it really matches there. Now remember I told you could like move this around. You could play this in other positions too. So you could do it off of G. Now when I play off of G, I go back to these progressions here, so I'm not going to actually just shift this over. If we want to be transposing keys, playing in other keys, we can take a look at transposing guitar chords. But for right now, we're actually going to start playing in these other keys. So if you want to go to G mixed Lydian, you literally would do the same thing. You start on your G, you have to learn the G pattern, so it's slightly different from the C. As you can see, it's a little bit different. The 7 is slightly in a different position. But you do the same thing off of G. So you go for G. Okay, so there you go. Some more chord progressions in G. It sounds a little different from C. We could do this with anything. So we're going to head into minor at this point, though, starting on the A minor here. Got those 2 notes there. I'm just going to go through this again. Start with your index finger first. Really get the pattern. Then you do this with the whole bar power chord. And then you can start playing chord progressions. was the same chord progression from before. It's kind of difficult to make things up on the spot, so give me a second to work some out. We got the 1 there. Alright, so there you go. I'm just sort of using my rule of playing the root chords many times. Now I'm also, subconsciously of course, doing this tip number 2 as well, which is good endings are the 5 and the 7 chord. Okay, and yeah, mostly it's going to be the 5, but these chords help you get back to your 1, help you start over again. They help you doing that. Of course, some of the other chords do too, but these two are strong at doing that, especially in the minor for 7. So let's maybe take a look at that in the next chord progression that we're going to do. There's 2 other minor keys. We got D and also E. I'm going to just go for E. Do the one in E, and then we can maybe call it a video here. So we're going to go to E minor. It's going to be on the 0. So I'm going to play the 0, and I'm going to play the F note, which is on the 1. Now this is going to be difficult because if we go from 0 to 1, that's where everybody gets confused here. Is it 0, 1, 3 here? Right, if you look at the little diagram here, it looks like it's 1, 2, and then 4 here on the fretboard, but it's not. This fret is actually a 0. So this is not a 1, okay? This is the 1. It's the first fret, it's the F. I'm just going to leave my mouse right here so you can see. That's the 1 right there. So I'm playing a 0, and then the F is the 1. And then I go to the G for 3. The next string is going to be A, B, C. Okay, so we've got that little pattern. Then we keep going. There's 2 more. We do this with the index and the zeros on both strings. 0, 1, 3, 0, 2, 3. A couple more there. Now we do this with the power chords. Start playing some chords, and I'm going to show you if we end on the 5 chord. It's going to sound really good. And here's how me ending on the 5 sounds like. Oops. This is the 6, 5. It sounds like it really matches because it's ending on the 5, so it works. If I go to 4, it's the same thing there. We could also do this from 8. Ending on 5 there. If we end on 7, it's going to sound good too. Problem with playing an E down here is that we don't have a 7 that's low. So if I want to end on the, if I want to use a 7 as an ending, I actually have to start at my 8 here on the high in order for this to sound really good. Gonna work something out. Okay, so I'm ending on the 7 here. Help me prep there. Okay, so I'm ending on the 7 there to pull me back to the 1, and it works really well. So these are the different ways that you want to use power chords with your chord progressions. You can play in any one of these keys, as you can see. All these modes, all you do is just follow the index finger around these little patterns, use them with power chords, and you start on your 1, you use your 8 and your 1 as your ending points. You don't really want to go outside these shapes, just stick with them because they sound good, they work. Later, when you get better, you can expand out of them, but this works really well. It's my formula, you know. So we focus on these chords here, and just try to work on these 2 tips, ending on 5s and 7s, and then looping this over back on 1, and playing the root many times. If you get to control that root, it really sounds like you're playing these keys. If you don't control your root very well, then it kind of sounds like you're playing random chords. So try to work this out, and again, if you really need help with this stuff, you should probably do a one-on-one lesson, because it's a lot different from me trying to learn from these videos versus me training you to actually play this stuff. Me giving you demonstrations doesn't really help you actually play them unless you're practicing at home. Anyway, good luck on that.